Hello world, this is Lisa Friedrichsen, your professor from Johnson County Community College. In our last screencast, we talked about putting JavaScript in the head section and also in the body section. We also discussed briefly that it's great to take all your JavaScript and put it in an external JS file right before the closing body tag so that our entire web page loads before we need that JavaScript, which typically interacts with the user. Here's my plants.js file, it just has a comment in it. We also saw that when we put our scripts in the body of our HTML page, it can get messy and hard to maintain very quickly because this is like inline or embedded JavaScript. We don't want to do this for the same reasons we don't want to use inline CSS. It's just very hard to maintain and we can't reuse that code from page to page. So what we're going to do now is take that line, take that prompt, and I'm going to move it down here with my lower statement so that I'm prompting for the user's name after this paragraph that's ID'd as customer is rendered, so that when I prompt for the username and that gets placed in the inner HTML property, hi world is going to be replaced with hi, and then whatever the username is, which is a result of this window prompt. That will help clean matters up a little bit. You can also get rid of these opening script tags. And let's see what this looks like. I'm going to refresh my page and it does work, but see that part of my page was loaded and I click OK. So I don't like that effect. I don't like that it's loading half of the page, and so I want to fix that. So I want to take that code out and put it in my external file anyway. So I'm going to cut it out of here and I'm going to place it in my external plants.js file, and let's just rerun the page now and see what happens. Now the entire page is being loaded before it's prompting me for my name. So that may not be what we want to have happen either. Let's say we want this JavaScript to be called right when the body first loads. So if you want this code to be run on a particular event and not just at the end of the file, then you can wrap it with a function name. And let's call this function get user name. Now these functions are case sensitive, as is most of JavaScript. So you have to be very careful when you write it. Also, all the statements inside a function go inside these curly brackets, and every function name is closed by parentheses. Sometimes a function needs information to process, and then those arguments are put inside these parentheses. For this particular function, we're just going to wrap these two statements with this function name. And you'll see things like this in your HTML. You'll see the body on load event, and you want to trigger this get user name function when that on load event occurs. So we would put our JavaScript back into our web page like this. I'm going to save that and refresh it, and it's running again. What is your name, Lisa? But unfortunately we saw the whole page load again. I can see the page load in the back before my code runs. But the interesting thing that I want you to notice about this, it's very subtle but it's very interesting, is I'm invoking that function name before I am reading that JavaScript file. And that's because functions that are in my external file, when the browser hits that line, it runs the rest of the page and then it returns to that function name. So the way this is processing is top to bottom with my HTML file, just like always, and then top to bottom in my external JavaScript file, and then the function is returning to this attribute that called it and running that function. So I've solved one of my problems in that I have taken my code and put it in an external file, and I've wrapped it with a function name, and I'm invoking it from my web page, so it's a lot cleaner look. But I have not solved my problem of wanting to prompt for the username before the rest of the page loads in the background. What I might do is just use my other tools, CSS, to get the effect that I want. For example, this entire page is wrapped in this div ID container. So I could go over to my style sheet here and talk to that container and set its visibility property. I could set that container's visibility property to hidden. Now when I invoke this page, the page is hidden. All I have to do now is use my JavaScript to change this visibility property back to not hidden. And I do that with my document get element by ID container, get style.visibility, set that to visible after the statement runs. Let's try this again. I have used CSS and HTML and JavaScript together to get the effect that I want, and I've taken my code and placed it in my external file. So initially the CSS sets the entire container to hidden, but when this function getUserName is invoked by the bodyOnLoad attribute, it runs through my JavaScript, prompts me for my name, sets the inner HTML property of customer to high username, and also sets the style of the entire container's visibility to visible. But you know what? We can even do one better, because even this is a little bit of JavaScript in my web page that we do not want to use if we can help it. And that's where event listeners come in. Event listener is written like this. What we're doing when we're loading the window, we're going to run, and then we identify the event that's running. Here we identify the function that we want to run, and by doing this, I can completely eliminate my JavaScript from my HTML. I don't need to invoke that function here because I've got an event listener list. To unpeel this onion, first of all, we want to keep all of our JavaScript in our external JS file if at all possible. Those statements that we want to run as a block of statements, we can wrap with a function name and then call that function name from an event property in our HTML, or better yet, listen for that event in our JavaScript. So when the load event runs on the window object, we're going to run the getUserName function. I'm going to unpack these event listeners even more thoroughly in a future screencast. Thank you.